Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. A great looking rose plant in the spring starts in the fall. Today we're going to look at what to do to get your roses ready for winter and spring. Also, chrysanthemums are everywhere in the fall. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mr. Bill Dickerson. Mr. Bill is our rose expert, and Joe Ellen will be joining me later. All right, Mr. Bill. Remember these roses?
I do. I do. They look good.
They look good. So you did a good job.
Thank
so
you.
Let's talk a little bit about fall rose care.
Fall rose care. Well, I'm going to tidy this bush up a little bit.
Okay.
This is an iceberg floribunda, and it's really done well.
Yes.
Small blooms, a lot of blooms. You want a deadhead. You don't cut floribundas back as much as you do, say, a hybrid tea. And I noticed that there's some leaf cutters. See where the leaves are?
Cool.
You get these little perfectly round holes, and it's just a leaf cutter, which is a beneficial. So you don't want to kill them. You just bear with them, and they actually line their nest with this tender leaf foliage. So they don't do any damage. But other than that, the bush is in pretty good shape.
I actually think that's pretty neat. It's precision cutting.
Oh, it is. They can make
just
just a perfectly round hole.
Right.
There, you gotta love Mother Nature. Now, deadheading wise, the petals are gone. So on versus a hybrid tea, I'm gonna come right about here, and you prune high, and you take that off because you don't want it to set rose hips. I found a rose hip down, that's pretty small. Where did I see?
Oh, there's another one.
Oh, here, yeah, here's, I'll pull that off.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's a rose hip. That sits and makes seeds, and you want to cut those off early fall. Now, in November, you leave them, and the plant will go dormant. But if you leave them now, the plant thinks it's propagated, and it dies down. So that's why you deadhead, and that's very important.
Okay.
And so you go down to a 5-leaf, you cut it off. These are pretty much spent. I'll just go down to a 5-leaf and cut that off.
Is it always 5 leaves?
Typically a 5-leaf is going to have a better chance to rebloom.
Okay. Gotcha.
Down here you got one bloom and a lot of foliage. You want the plant to get air. This is not productive. I'm going to come down here, go to a 5-leaf, and take this large, and where you have this multi-canes, you're going to get a big bloom of flowers. And just to tidy up the bush, I'm going to take this out. It looks better. It gets rid of, you only had one bloom on there. And so that'll actually do better, and you'll get a nice bloom instead of just one or two.
Okay. So we're trying to get as many blooms as possible, right?
Yeah, and that's the whole, we're kind of manipulating Mother Nature,
okay,
and getting it to bloom.
Right.
And in the meantime, we're wanting to kind of shape the plant. Now here, you had one bloom. I'm gonna come down, cut it on the back side so that the next cane will go the same way the leaves are facing.
All right, gotcha.
But it's pretty good, and you don't have to do a whole lot. Here's one that's bloomed. I'm gonna leave the ones that's on here.
There you go.
Yep,
There you go.
and if you make a mistake cutting, no big deal,
No big
they'll grow
deal.
back. That's just, and now you'll get many more blooms like this, and that's kind of what you're shooting on. You want a flush of blooms. This is it's pretty all year long. Now here's a cane that's coming up and blooms. This is going in the middle. So see how it kind of opens the...
Well, it sure did. Open it up quite a bit.
You know, the old rule of thumb is to be able to put a bowl in the middle
Right.
of the bush. But see, I've taken a lot of that out. That's going to let air bleed, and that air flow is going to knock down on the the fungus.
Right.
So it doesn't have a place to hide.
Okay. Get those leaves dried off.
But the bush looks really good. But on the Floribunda, you prune lightly instead of, versus a hybrid T, you go down a foot or better.
Okay.
Next, I'm gonna put a little triple 13 fertilizer,
Right.
kind of around the outside of the bush. Roses are heavy feeders.
So we're saying, so obviously it's not too late to do this then, right?
No, it used to be into September,
Okay.
but our growing season's a little longer now. We'll have blooms in Christmas a lot of times. So after probably the end of November, no more nitrogen.
No more nitrogen. Gotcha.
But this will perk them up. You get nice. This bush has really done well.
Good. Okay.
We've got a hybrid in. Always throw this away. You don't want to leave it on the ground.
Yeah, practice good sanitation, right?
Now here, this has got some leaf burn from the heat, and it's got some black spot, which you use a fungicide, which is a preventative. The first thing is always to cut some of the dead stuff out. I'm gonna take this out, and it's not doing very well. But what color is that pith in the middle of the cane?
That's white.
Well,
The creamy.
no, the middle is.
Oh, it's dark. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
The
got a
pith is
little
dark.
bit of live tissue.
Right.
So this is not doing very well because that cane's kind of dying.
Right.
And a lot of times you just have to keep cutting back to white pith. Here you have unproduction. There's no bloom shooting up. You want to kind of thin this bush out a little bit to let back to the airflow, which is very important. See what we got here. I'm going to take this one out. And you'll make a mistake every once in a while. You'll cut the wrong cane, and you know what? It's like a bad haircut. It'll grow back.
Go back.
You just got. You have to move on. Now I noticed on the last cutting, went here. Well, pruned here. The next cane in 40 days on a hybrid T, 40, 45 days, the next cane's going to grow this way. Typically, you want it to grow out. So, and you can see there's a little node
yeah,
right here.
it's going that way.
That's why, and you always want to cut, and they did this properly, you always want to cut about 1/4 of an inch right above that leaf node. I want it to go this way, so I'm going to come down. Oh,
Can you get it? That one's look tough. There you go.
See how white that was
Yeah,
versus
that's nice.
versus
Yeah, the dark
this one,
pith.
which is
Yeah.
black in the middle. So this is just run out of energy, and there's no life going to it.
Okay.
So now this next cane is going to grow same way the leaf is. This is a little thick, and here again, you're just opening up the bush a little bit, and then you won't have to use as much fungicide.
Okay. So what do you think about the overall growth of this one, though?
Well, it's coming along,
coming along?
well. Now, mulch would help tremendously. Fertilizer. I noticed that you can see at the bottom that's rocking a little bit. I would add a little more soil around that and then tap it in, well, right there. And that's why we wind top in the fall. November, probably closer to December, January after the blooms.
Okay.
You take a bush that's this tall and you bring it down, because on a windy day, it's doing this.
Like a rock.
And when it rocks, it tears those young white feeder roots. So you're just losing nutrition. This is not doing much. I'm gonna cut this off. Take the little bit out of the middle. This is very small. So when you take this away, you're going to get more energy going to the bigger cane. And what you want is it to grow up and be like this.
Gotcha.
You got new growth here.
That's good.
There's a little bit of dead. I'm going to take that out, but there's new growth, and that's what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, it looks good.
And it'll take this big cane here. It'll take about, like I say, 40, 45 days to get a new cane similar to this, a bud, and then a bloom. Any dead wood, which you can see that that's dying out.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
Get rid of that. Here's a little small one. And you see brown.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So I'll just go down a little bit below that, and there's a little bit of brown in there.
Yeah,
but
bit.
then you'll get a new cane. Then again, I'll add a little triple 13 around the drip line. Clean your mess up. You don't want to leave those leaves on the ground because then they really get black spot, and then
Yeah.
they'll spread it. The rain hits and it bounces up. But other than that, the bush is coming along for a young bush. And what you want is these big, healthy canes here. That's going to produce, and you'll have a lot better growth the next season.
All right, Mr. Bill, we appreciate that fall rose care demonstration. Looks like you've done this a couple of times before, so thank you much, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm here thinking about some of the joys and challenges of growing in raised beds. Now, when we get to the end of the summer, there's nothing better than a homegrown watermelon, and right here beside me we have watermelon vines that are growing out and all around our raised beds. In small space gardening, one of the challenges with vining crops is having enough space for them, right? To have enough sunlight and to have enough room for them to grow and root well. There are a range of tools that we could use. We could use a trellis to support our vining crops, but with a watermelon, when we get very large fruit, then we'd have to add additional support just for the fruit. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is the fact that we now have newer watermelon cultivars coming on the market that can provide us with a much more compact plant. Short and Sweet is an example of a cultivar that could work there, and they could be a great addition to our raised bed gardens.
Let's talk about chrysanthemums, because that time is almost near, right?
Yes.
Okay.
September, perfect time to get chrysanthemums. Now, they'll be showing up in all the stores
Yes.
and everywhere, all different colors. They have done an excellent job of creating all of these different colors for us to have beauty at our own house. Decorate for fall decorations, everything. And this is one thing you have to, if you see something in September blooming and it's beautiful and you want to bring it home, that's great. It'll last about 2 to 3 weeks depending on the weather. The cooler it is, you know, of course, the longer the blooms will last.
Okay.
But that was an early blooming mum. There's
Okay.
early, mid, and late blooming mums. That's why when you see, well, I see them at the stores all the time. Well, yeah, when they get them in, they have early blooming mums. There's mid-season blooming mums, and there's late season blooming mums. So, but just okay, you can go find another one and
Right,
replace it. So that's the beauty of the long season of mums, because we have those 3 different kinds. Now, a lot of people ask, will the mums last?
Will they last?
Yes,
That's going to be the
because
question.
chrysanthemums are perennial, and they all came from perennial mums, but they've been hybridized so much, and the florist trade has really taken on mums, and there are a lot of florist mums in the trade. I mean, and you can get flower arrangement from any place, and they've got mums in them.
seen it.
So those are grown for different reasons. And they were all perennial at one time, and they probably still are in certain places. Now, the garden mums you get at the store, they can be perennial, but you know, they're usually zones, 2 to 9, somewhere in there. So those people can usually keep them if they have the right spot, and that's the problem, finding the right spot. Now, I have kept them before, and they'll stay for a few years, but then something will happen and some of them will go. A lot of people I know will have them, but they are usually in raised areas. They are well drained because they don't like to have wet roots at all. And that's kind of the trouble in the Mid-South area that we have, because it's so wet around here.
Right.
In the
Especially
winter,
that time of the year, right?
rainy season for us. So that's, you know, the key is to keep them well drained in the wintertime, and then most likely they will come back. One thing to not do if you are going to try to make them perennial in your yard, please, when they die in the cool of the frosts that come, leave the foliage there, because that's going to protect the crown.
Okay.
And you're really supposed to leave the dead foliage, and sometimes in some places further north from here, they even suggest putting straw around the crown, you know, in amongst the stems of the chrysanthemum for protection, or some mulch of some kind that's loose. And then in the spring, you can remove all of that, and then they should come back up again. And you should fertilize them in the spring.
What would you use to fertilize?
A complete fertilizer, any kind of complete fertilizer. You can do a long-lasting one or one that doesn't last long. Sometimes they'll fertilize them again in the end of June. Now, some people say, well, mine are starting to bloom. Yeah, what happens is they'll start to bloom maybe in July.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, or August. And so
in the heat.
In the heat. But if you don't prune them before that, if you go ahead and start letting them bloom, just go ahead and let them bloom. They may bloom again in the fall when it gets cooler.
Okay.
Because some of them are actually bred to bloom twice like that. So, you know, you never know. But if you only want the nice fall flush of bloom, then you should cut them before the 4th of July.
Cut them before?
Yep, cut them back before the 4th of July.
Okay.
And then when they come back out, they'll have time, and then they'll bloom in the fall just once.
Okay.
But yeah, so they are perennial, but sometimes around here especially, it's kind of tricky to keep them. But well-drained soils is key.
Okay. Fertilize. Okay.
Fertilize in the spring, and sometimes again in July, end of July, and then get a nice flush of blooms in the fall.
Okay. So how much are we cutting back?
Just enough to cut off the top where the blooms are trying to form, just the tips.
Just the tips.
And
okay.
you know, most of these are bred to be nice and bushy, like they are. So you really don't have to do a whole lot. Mine just naturally grow bushy, just like they were when I got them the year before.
All right.
So, but yeah, just tip off all of the blooms where the blooms would be, and that will cause them to stop and regrow again and then bloom later in the fall.
Okay. Any pest problems we need to know about, or fungal issues?
Now, I've never seen fungal problems with them, but that doesn't mean they won't get some, but bugs sometimes do, you know, chew on the leaves, and a lot of times I've seen that it might actually be a caterpillar of some kind.
Right.
And so, you know, BT would help that, but you just look at them often. But chrysanthemums, you know, the chemical pyrethrin comes from chrysanthemums, so really not a whole lot bothers them.
Right, yeah, and of course Mr. D mentions that all the time. Right. Yeah, so they shouldn't have any major
No,
problems.
they really
with
don't have.
insect pests.
I've never had any on mine, so
Okay.
they're real good and they're easy to grow. Like I said, you take a chance. Buy the beautiful ones that you want in the fall. Try to save them. Put them in a nice, well-drained area. Mulch them up in the winter. See if they'll come back for you.
And I guess full sun?
They love full sun. That is, yeah. I'd say at least 4 to 6 hours of sun a day
Okay.
would be good for them, because I have them on one side of the house, and my mother has them on one side of the house, and it doesn't get sun all day long, but part of the day.
I actually have another question for you. So
Sure.
when you're out, you know, picking mums, you know, for your home, do you look for the ones that have all of the blooms on them? That are open or closed or what?
That's a good point. Right. Yes. No, I like to buy them with lots of buds on them.
Okay.
I want to be able to see the color. Like some of them are breaking and some of them are, you know, blooming, so I know what it's going to look like.
Right.
But I like to buy lots of buds because I know it'll last in the landscape a lot longer.
Okay. Yeah, I've often wondered that, because of course when you see them, you know, out at the big box store or some other place, yeah, they're full of blooms, and some are not, just have little buds on them. So,
Yeah,
so
so-
you get the early ones, Mr. D. There's some more coming behind that one.
There
Right in
is.
the middle. Then
There's
there's some
a
more
lot.
coming behind that one.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Because they are beautiful. You
Gorgeous.
Know, especially during the fall, you can decorate with them. I actually, you know, try to have some out, you know, in the yard. So that I do like them. But I didn't know about
every
the
year.
early, middle, and the late. That was new to me. So I hope the
Yeah.
folks got that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joellen. That was good. Appreciate that.
I was looking at this bush and I noticed a cane borer. And a cane borer will bore into the cane after you've cut it off and pruned. And it may go down 1/4 of an inch, it may go down 1/2 inch, it may go down 10 inches. That's why we tell people to use Elmer's exterior glue. That hardens it off and they can't bore through it. So what I'm gonna do is cut that out because there's no nutrients going through that cane. You go as close to this as you can and you cut it off. Well, when you look and see, there's a little white there, which is a little bit of life and energy, but most of this is gone. There's a little bit of a hole left. So that cane borer pretty much got all of this. And this is just a dead cane that's not doing well. That looks severe, but when you cut this off, there's a good chance that you're gonna get a basal break, which is a new healthy cane like this. And that's what you want, is new, vibrant, healthy canes that you're gonna get some life out of.
All right, Mr. Beal, here's our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
These are great questions. We'll start with the first viewer email. For perennial flowering shrubs, do you treat for insects or fungus only when needed, or should I treat preventatively with a systemic? And this is Brad from Virginia. Hey, what do you think about that one?
Some, it's kind of,
this is an interesting question.
Some need more are more susceptible to powdery mildew or blight or something like that. You know, systemic is always good, and it's a preventative.
Right.
So if you know this particular plant is going to be susceptible to something, say in May or June, go ahead and spray it the month before, and you can't go wrong with that.
Because the thing with the systemic is this: you're going to get a long residual.
Yes.
So some of those are 12, 13 months.
And you're good for.
I mean, you're good. Yeah.
And then the insecticides for the insects, I just spray as needed.
Right. Well, yeah. So the imidacloprid would be, of course, a systemic, insecticide. Right.
Yeah, imidacloprid.
Right. So imidacloprid, and again, we're talking about that 12, 13 month residual. So yeah, if you go ahead and treat now, so you won't have to treat again, for another year or so.
But if you if you have something that's not insect or disease prone, just leave it alone.
Right. And then we do know that fungicides are preventative in nature.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you can pretty much, do those, as a preventative measure. Right. It's going to be a lot of spraying. You have to read and follow the label with that, but
even tomatoes, before I figured out the thing about blight, once they have blight and it's a preventative. It doesn't cure what you got.
Right.
That's the hardest part to get people to, if you've already got it, well, it's just, you might as well pull the leaves off and spray something, but it's a preventative.
Right. It's only going to be effective on the new growth.
Correct.
So that's the thing about that. So again, using the systemics are fine. Of course, we leave that to the homeowner, but you'll get a longer residual. Some of your contact insecticides, you're going to have to reapply over and over again.
Yes.
Right, because it has a short residual.
And usually it has to hit the insect to kill them.
Right.
And if they're not there, it's just a waste of chemicals.
That's right. That's right. All right, Brad, so I hope that answers your question, which was a good question.
It was.
All right, here's our next viewer email. I have a crepe myrtle on the western-facing side of my house that the topmost part of seems to have died back. I've noticed this on a lot of crepe myrtles around and have just procrastinated looking into the cause. What is causing this, and can I prune? Do you have any advice on how far down to prune to so it'll recover the nicest way possible for the tree? And this is Jill from Arlington, Tennessee. So again, the crepe myrtle, dead tops. This is what I'm thinking. So you remember the freeze from November, then we had a frost in March. So the crepe myrtles didn't have a chance to harden before the freeze in November. Then guess what happens in March? Here comes a frost, right? As it's growing,
late frost.
As the plant is starting to take up photosynthase and starting to grow, here comes the frost. So it kind of just burns the top off, right? So yeah, that's what caused it. But can she prune? Yes.
You can always prune, and you got to figure
it's dead. Yeah.
Cut the dead out.
Yeah.
That's always an easy, quick start. Cut the dead out, and then you just got to figure out how big that new growth, what do you want it to look like?
Right.
I've got one at my house that was 30 foot tall, so I sat there and figured out if I cut it to 6 foot, it's going to bloom up to 6 foot. Because in the spring, in the fall, the cardinals would eat the seeds. So I just look out the door and see that. But I always cut the dead out.
Always.
And this, I tell people, we had 7 days of below freezing.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had that late frost. Almost every question, how come this doesn't look like this? How come? Here we go.
It's like frost.
It was really hard here in Memphis, really hard.
Really tough.
I mean, it killed a lot of stuff. You know, my theme was wait and see if it comes back, bend it to see if it's alive. If it snaps off, it's dead. Cut it back till it bends. Or you can take your pruners or a knife and scratch off to see if it's green.
There you go. That's pretty much what I told people as well. Yeah, so you can cut it all the way back till you get the green tissue.
Yeah.
And then just see what happens. You know, from
If
there.
you don't like it, cut it again.
Cut it again, right? Yeah, I have 4 crepe myrtles at home. Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Yeah, so yeah, just a little, tip dye back, just prune it out to the green tissue.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You'll be
just fine. So thank you for that question, Ms. Jill. Appreciate that. Mr. Bill, that was good. That was good.
You was,
That's fine.
enjoyed
Thank you
it.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about taking care of roses or chrysanthemums, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. While you're there, ask us your gardening questions. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.